Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, welcoming you to this week's special episode of What Did You Think? And as you'll see, I'm not in my usual surroundings today. No, and my special guest Andrew is not here today either. Instead, I am on location. I have been welcomed to the home studio of a good personal friend of mine who was one of the early supporters of Matt's Movies, Music and More. And I've been a big fan of his for a number of years, and we've become good friends ever since. So I'm very privileged and proud to welcome to Matt's Movies, Music and More for the very first time, Cutting Crew's Nick Van Eede. Hi Nick, you've materialised out of nowhere.
It's a pretty special room, this got all kinds of sci-fi things going on there. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, and thank you very much for welcoming me to come along and do this.
Make yourself at home. This is a room of all kinds of explorations and writing and all kinds of nonsense.
So yeah. Plenty of fantastic hits have been written here.
A few. Brilliant.
So for many of you who know out there, obviously who Nick is. For those of you who don't, Nick is famous for being the lead singer and founding member of the band Cutting Crew, who are most famous worldwide for the massive hit single I Just Died in Your Arms, as well as other hits including I've Been in Love Before, Any Colour, and One for the Mockingbird, to name a few. And I know that we're going to talk about music at some point, but today we're talking about movies. So, what did you think? You've seen my show?
I've seen your show a few times, yeah.
So you know that we have the Twister Spinner in normally, but for celebrity editions we don't have that. Instead, it's going to be Nick's pick. So, what movie did you pick for us, Nick, to talk about?
Right, well, you know, I'm 60 years old, so I've seen a lot of films. It was hard. But then easy in the end, because I tried to choose something that had an impact on me, as opposed to I laughed or I cried or whatever, but real impact. And so I've chosen Alan Parker's quite brilliant and scary and haunting and tough and brutal Midnight Express.
Wow! So Midnight Express, which was
a jolly little movie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Midnight Express was released in 1978, and as Nick says, directed by Alan Parker, and it stars Brad Davis, John Hurt, and Paul Smith.
And Randy Quaid.
Yes, and Randy Quaid as well. Midnight Express. This came out in 1978. Now, for those of you out there, this was roughly about the time that you began your solo career of working after being discovered by Chaz Chandler from The Animals. This was roughly about the time that you were starting your career as a solo artist and going out on the road supporting the likes of Slade and David Essex and Hot Chocolate, to name a few. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, you know, this hasn't been prompted, that question, but it's spot on as to why this resonates with me. 1978 was the year that, 77 I got signed to Chaz, and so it took a long time of meetings and going up, and he had this great big recording studio in some Portland place. And I was this lad from down rural Sussex, the Bumpkin. So I would go up and have a meeting, say, with a lawyer at 11, and then maybe be in the studio at 5 in the afternoon when Slade finally got out. And I would have time to kill, and that's exactly what happened. And that's where I saw it in sometime in 78. I wouldn't be able to tell you what.
You don't remember what cinema or anything?
Well, it's Shaftesbury Avenue. Yeah, one of those big, probably not there anymore now with all the changes. But it's one of those big London West End, thing in the afternoon showing as well. That was the weird thing.
And do you remember the reaction from the audience that you were sitting amongst when you saw that film?
Probably not very much, because I was so stunned. I think to try and put it in perspective, you know, as I said, I'm quite a local country boy, so being up in London, walking out onto the streets of London at about 5:30 after having watched that movie, I was stunned and quite scared in a way. It shook me up a lot.
Yeah. And obviously you picking this movie, it's an important film to you, and I know that going on to the band that you would have formed a few years later, the Drivers, it inspired you to write a song based on Midnight Express,
Lord,
which
yes.
you would perform live, right?
Arm of the Law, I think you're talking about.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Kind of new wave reggae kind of thing. Yeah, not all of the lyrics are singable on video. No, but some are a little obscene, but he had planned it from the start.
So with the choice of film, why is it that it made such an impact on you? Is it because of the subject matter?
Yes. It's two parts really. The second part is the film itself, but the subject matter shook me to the core because, so this is 78, yeah? In 1975, 1976, I was in the 5th year at school, as we used to call it back then, and I went on holiday to Turkey with some very good friends, still very, very good friends of mine. And let's just say that we didn't just have cookies in the cookie tin, and we went all the way to friggin' Turkey. And everything was fine, obviously, stupidly. But to come back and then just a few years later watch that film and realise that that was actually happening, when it happened to Billy Hayes was 70, 71, 72, 73. So the regime would have been just as harsh on me and my friends if we'd, got caught. So we weren't, sorry, let's make this absolutely clear. I'm talking about, we're not got any huge amounts. We're not smuggling or anything like that. But there were a few special cookies. So the realisation of what could have happened doubly stunned me.
Yeah, I can imagine. So,
but the film itself was very powerful.
Yeah. So the fact that it's based on the story of Billy Hayes, this American college student. I know that they did change a few aspects of the story in advance to not upset certain individuals mentioned, especially some of the things that did happen in the film, such as the representation of the Turkish police and stuff like that. Yeah,
I mean, there was quite a lot of backlash, and still is. I've been looking up just recently about, online, and there's still people saying, what a dreadfully, we are not all pigs who live in Turkey. So it upset a lot of people, even with the toning down.
You know that the screenplay was written by future Hollywood film director Oliver Stone, so he got a lot of backlash for this as well.
Did he? Yeah.
And obviously, we haven't even gotten into the movie yet, so normally I get my special guest to describe the plot of this film to the best you can. So can you explain to the audience what the movie Midnight Express is actually about?
Foolish young American and girlfriend coming home after obviously having a holiday, but he's got tons of hashish strapped to his body. It's an astonishing scene at the airport where he gets caught, he gets thrown into jail, the procession of dodgy lawyers and promises are broken. He serves his 3 years, I think it is something like that, and he's got about 40 days to go. He gets called back in front of the court again, thinking that's going to be quashed and home, and they have upped the charges to smuggling, and so he's given life imprisonment. Shows his deterioration into madness, fake or real, and finally the atrocities that went on, and the eventual remarkable escape. And he did escape in real life. I think they tweaked the live story.
Yeah, it has been tweaked a bit.
I think it was on an island, Billy Hayes. Hayes, I'm doing the Turkish.
William Hayes.
Billy Hayes. So they tweaked it a bit to make it work, but yeah.
Yeah, so I know that obviously his escape is not as the same as the ending of the movie, which involves one of the Turkish prison guards and stuff like that. But regarding the way the movie is shot, do you think that cinematically it really stands out with like this world that they're trapped in, that it looks like there is no escape the way it looks? Very claustrophobic.
Totally claustrophobic. Let me say straight away now, because this will kind of tinge everything I say from now on. I watched it just 3 days ago, just cause, just to see it again. Yeah. And I don't think I've seen it since that day. I don't think I avoided it. It may have been on, on the television, and I went, oh yeah, Midnight Express. So I found it not as shocking, which I think is a general comment on what we are subjected to now at 9 o'clock at night, So the brutality wasn't as shocking, although as this 18-year-old lad back then, it shook me up. And I have seen many films much better than this. This isn't my favourite movie ever. I've chosen this because of it being a time in my life and the effect it had on me. So I hope I still qualify for that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem.
That everything's so enclosed, sort of hazy, not very sharp. You can almost smell it, can't you? In fact, I heard John Hurt insisted on not washing for the entire session of 80 days, and he was stinking like a, whatever you stink like after that time, just to be in character. Some lovely stories about that. In fact, Paul Smith, the bully of the guard, who, remind me what house he's been in.
I'm trying to think. I know that he would play Bluto in the Popeye movie. And I
So
know
this
that he
is
was also in June and a few other films. As
June,
well.
that's right,
Yeah,
yes. So he's a big man, very physically threatening man, and I think steals the film in some ways, because whenever he walks, and he does this shake of the
He's
head.
very menacing.
But Hurt and I think Randy Quaid actually threatened to walk off set because he was so physical with them.
Wow.
This is from Alan
So a
Parker's
real method
notes.
actor type
Yeah.
thing.
Method, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Method, or just, you know, so I think he knocked somebody, one of the actors, I can't remember, was scratched his front of his lip and all this sort of stuff. So they had to say, come on man, you know, be in character, but not quite so much.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. But when you look at this film and you see it and the brutality, how does that make you feel seeing it? Because it looks so believable, as if it's really happening. And given that movie making is fantasy in general, it just looks so believable.
Well, Parker's good at that. He is one of my favourite directors for accidentally. You know, I don't look him up, so we'll maybe talk about that a bit later. But yeah, it's believable. I think the actual brutality, you know, the smacking of people's feet with
that's one of the most memorable bits. Yeah,
that one got you. But that it is brutal, but it's more the fact that, you know, this helplessness. In a lot of films now, at that point he was never going to escape, you know, and he escapes really flukily as well.
Yeah.
This isn't. I remember Alan Parker saying this, because I said I love this film. I've researched it a lot. That he was pushed by the studio to make it much more of you know, an escape film, and he said it's not about escape; it's about endurance, about the system. So he actually at the end kind of wanders out, doesn't he? Which I really like. It's not like dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
It hasn't got any of that, and that's what the studio were pushing for. I can't remember what the question was, but yeah, it works very, very well. Yeah.
Do you think it's scary, the fact that when you're watching this and you hear a lot of the interaction between the Turkish prisoners and the guards and everything like that, the movie does choose not to have any subtitles, so you have no idea what these characters are talking about. So you're seeing this through Billy's eyes, and he has no idea what they're talking about. He thinks he might be getting his freedom, but maybe not.
In that scene by the judge rules, is he saying you're free to go, or is he saying you will be hung? And totally that alienation of it's very clever. That I have not used a lot because we're so into subtitles now. Netflix, you know, Nikki, my wife, has it constantly with subtitles, so we read the film, you know, which in some ways is great, you know, because you tend to, you know, you don't miss anything, but that would be the other end of it totally, where it was this. And also I was told that in order not to upset the Turks, it was almost like a kind of a nonsense language, you know. It was it wasn't Turkish, it wasn't Armenian, it wasn't Greek, it was this kind of give me that. So I don't know if that's true or not, but so, you know, I love a Turkish person to
I can imagine it, because Paul Smith himself is an American, so, you know, he probably wouldn't be able to speak Turkish, I'm guessing, So, but what little he says in the movie is still pretty menacing a character anyways.
Yeah. I've got a question for you. Did you know who was the studio's first choice to star instead of Brad Davis?
No idea.
Richard Gere.
Wow.
Gere had made...
this has been before American Gigolo then?
Yes, he'd done Looking for Mr. Goodbar, is it called?
Okay,
Something, Finding Mr. Goodbar, which he made his name on.
Okay.
And so the studio said, Gere. And Parker went to him and said, would you read, you know, for me? And he said, no, I think I've proved myself. No, I don't do readings anymore. So Parker was like, okay. And Brad Davis came along. He was 2 hours late. He ran in, covered in grease because his VW had broken down on the highway, sweaty. And as they called him, boss-eyed, because he is quite boss-eyed.
Yeah, I noticed that,
And when they presented him to the studio, they're like, go back to Gere. So he went back to Gere again. And by this time, Gere had moved on. So I think Brad Davis was an inspiration, because it was quite nice it wasn't a star.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, because it might make you feel that as an individual that this is just an everyday person, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So accidentally maybe, but it made it even stronger.
Yeah, because his career itself was kind of, you know, this is his only big movie. He didn't really do much after that besides like TV films here and there, and obviously he died in the early 90s of AIDS.
Oh, was he a young man? Yeah.
I think so. I think he might have been in his late 30s, early 40s, something like that. But no, it's sad about him. And then obviously you've got his relationship with the American prisoner, the Randy Quaid, and then you've got John Hurt as the hippie, and then you've got this other subplot that's going on with him. And is it a Dutch or a Danish prisoner who's kind of got this kind of sexual situation.
Scandinavian or something.
Yeah. That was very uncomfortable as well, and they just sort of brushed it off like, no, that's normal. It didn't seem like it was flaunted in the viewer's face, really. It just came from out of nowhere.
And it was cut as well. The scene was cut a lot. To save America. I mean, we're talking, not even 1980 at this stage. So that's a long time ago where people played it so safe. So any hint of a homosexual scene would have been, to the studio. So they put it down to some massaging and some sort of stretching and yoga together, for the cut I just saw recently, there was nothing overt. But again, you see, it's 2019 now. We're used to seeing just about anything we can. So but that was another studio intervention.
And you've got, with the movie being based over a period of, was it 5 years that he was in prison, something like that? Yeah. So the movie doesn't tell you where it is going on year by year, because you see his hair, obviously, and he's growing a beard and everything like that and stuff like that. And at the beginning, you see him very, near enough bald, like sort of hair shaven and stuff like that. And then obviously he is it Rifki, the Turkish prisoner who causes a lot of trouble there, and sort of like the main grass to the Paul Smith.
He's
guy.
like the trustee prisoner that is the head of them all.
Because is he kind of blind or kind of got the cataracts kind of thing, something like that?
Great makeup. If it wasn't real, it was wonderful makeup. Yeah, despicable snitch.
And then by the sort of the end, he looks kind of like a sort of Neanderthal ape, like an early Neanderthal man from the Stone Age. Would you say, Brad Davis?
Oh, Brad Davis. Yeah. His whole face. In fact, Parker said that they had to calm him down a lot because he was so into this character, and I think it was I think it was 80 days straight shooting in Malta. They shot it.
Wow.
That they had to literally just say, Brad, come on, you're doing a fantastic job, but just ease up a bit. And that whole etched tension on his face was remarkable. Going back to Rifki, of course, one of the nasty scenes in it is when Rifki hangs John Hurt's pet cat. And that's all that John Hurt really had as his friend in there. And he's a lifer. He's never going to get out. And so that and many other things, Brad Davis or William Heiss jumps on Rifki when he finally explodes. He rips the whole washroom to pieces. And you can see this. I was watching it. This isn't plywood. This is proper metal and tin. And he's so pumped and angry, and then he jumps on him and he bites Rifki's tongue out and spits.
It's a very, very shocking scene.
Right. And you see it. You see as much as you can.
And back in '78, when you saw it, obviously you'd never probably seen anything like that, with that sort of violence and graphicness and believable realism to it.
Yeah.
But with the movie itself, it's very much a male-driven movie. I think you only have one female in the movie, which is Billy's girlfriend, and she plays a prominent scene later, and probably the most famous scene in the movie, in which is the prisoner visit scene. Yeah. And obviously that's very traumatic for Billy. And
she visits him, and she just is distraught and is urging him to get out. She just is begging him that he has to get out, or he'll never get out. He'll die in there. And all Billy wants is for her to unbutton her blouse, and it's that disconnect when that's all he, he wasn't even interested in what she was talking about. But it actually was the turning point. That from that moment on, he went, okay, and that's when he goes back down into the sanitarium and walks the wrong way around the pillar. There's this procession of the slightly mad prisoners where Billy had now been housed. And they always walk, a good Turk always walks to the right. Left is communism. And Billy starts walks left. And they're all like, no, you're going the wrong way. And that's his first sign of I will buck the trend. And from that, then he plans his escape.
So yeah, that scene that you're talking about where he goes towards the communism and everything, that guy who's the one that's like, sir, you need to walk this way. This is the wrong way. He's a real scene stealer with the way he speaks, very elegantly spoken and everything like that. Sounds kind of weird for being a prisoner, because he's probably been there a long time now.
Yeah, I think he said he wasn't going to get out from interfering with a child or something. Yeah, he's quite a famous, I can't remember his name, quite a famous, you've seen him in all those films over the 60s and 70s. And also it trips you up because the last thing you expect is this hello accent with the robes and everything on. So, and also proving just how many foreigners were in Turkish prisons then.
Well, given the fact that this movie, I think, was co-produced and co-financed by primarily a British crew. I think David Putnam was one of the producers of this. So clearly they must have used a lot of their English respiratory actors to come along and be in this movie, because there's not very many American actors in it besides obviously Brad Davis and Randy Quaid and Paul Smith. But besides that, I think the rest is English and a few foreign here and there.
Yeah, and I'm sure just like Alan Parker used his
cinematographer.
Thank you. And whenever I come to that word again, you jump.
Yes,
in.
Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem.
From I think it was from Bugsy Malone. You know, you use it's like me. You know, I use a drummer I like.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you? And therefore, maybe Alan knew John Hurt from something. John Hurt had just done the what was it called? The Naked Civil Servant.
Oh yeah, that's Quentin Crisp.
Yeah. So he just made his name. So it was quite a hot name. Probably didn't mean a thing in America. So again, quite an odd choice.
He was quite unusual because he's playing this sort of stoned out hippie, right?
All the time.
Yeah, and that's unusual for what we've seen him for as a British actor back then. But obviously he was making his name in Hollywood, and clearly this would have helped.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. He didn't steal the film, but
no,
he was always there. Just yeah. So it was just this ensemble cast of not huge names, and it just worked. And I guess it's something we're all a bit scared of, isn't it? Now, you know, I'm flying in 8 hours' time. I'll be getting on an airplane, and there's always this thing, you know, that when you're checking in. Oh my God, I forgot. I left my scissors. You know, we're in a very tense, suspicious world now. You know, maybe quite rightly. And so landing in another country, even though most thing I'll ever carry is a packet of cigarettes or something. But you know, you just got, it's a tense moment. So this film takes all those fears and puts it into a bottle and says, this is what can happen if you fuck up. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if this is something that you want to talk about, but what's your opinion on the music by Giorgio Moroder? I'm
glad you asked that. I've got very strong opinions on this. First of all, being a musician, when I watched the film, I didn't even notice it. Didn't even notice it. So back in 1978, you'd think as a young guy, I'd be like, oh, music, you know, and I love soundtracks. Or, you know, the written music for...
Yeah, because this is all 100% composed incidental music. There's no pop songs or anything like that at all.
Back in those days, didn't happen much, did it?
No.
Probably just beginning to start happening.
Yeah.
So I listened again, and he got a frigging Oscar for this. And I think it's barely... There's only music in about 6 times.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very odd choice. It didn't work for me one bit.
No,
it's not bad.
It seems electronic for an era when electronic wasn't really around till the mid-70s, like Kraftwerk and all that.
I'm glad you agree. You've got these crusty 1800s, you know, old castle prison, and it didn't work for me.
I kind of think they should have maybe used a Turkish soundtrack of like that sort of represents that world.
Yes.
Maybe
we're being too obvious. It didn't spoil it,
no.
But to get an Oscar, I'd love to know what other soundtracks were out there that year.
I can't tell you.
They must have been pissed off.
Big time. But so with this movie, I mean, it was produced on a shoestring, really, if you call it that, $2.3 million, but it went on to make $35 million in the box office in America alone, and obviously was nominated for many Academy Awards, as you've already mentioned. It picked up for that. Now, I don't know, do you want to mention any more about the movie before we go on about some of the other people involved in it?
No, that's good. Just quickly think. Nope.
No, that's cool. So the reason you picked this partly is because you're a huge fan of the film director Alan Parker, and Alan Parker is a British director who has been in the industry since the early 1970s, and he had directed the movie Bugsy Malone in 1976, and this film came out 2 years later. So, what's your opinion on Bugsy Malone?
None, really.
No, I've never seen it.
I've seen it. Great, you know, and I don't think anybody had ever done anything like that before, with all the machine guns full of custard and stuff. So good on you. I think he was groundbreaking for and he cast all kids, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
Who was the famous girl in it?
Jodie Foster,
Thank you,
an
yeah.
Academy Award-winning actress. Yeah, and the fact that Alan Parker himself hasn't directed very many movies. In fact, his last movie was in 2003, which was the Kevin Spacey film, The Life of David Gale. But amongst his movies, he's done things such as after the Midnight Express, he did Fame, which was a huge hit, musical. And then
Another musical,
yeah. And then he did 2 films in the same year. In 1982, he did Shoot the Moon, which is a movie that starred Albert Finney, who, as we filmed this today, we found out that he passed away today.
Just today.
And
Also, wonderful actor.
Yeah.
Wonderful actor.
And also that year he did Pink Floyd's The Wall. So being a music fan and a Pink Floyd fan, what was your opinion on that movie?
Well, let's just say, you know, you're going to bring it up, but there's going to be 3 films that you're going to say, all by Alan Parker, all accidental, that I didn't know until I looked at the end who directed it, that I love.
Yeah.
In my probably top 15, you know, so it's amazing.
So you got Birdie that came out a couple of years later, Angel Heart with Robert De Niro.
That's in the top 15, yeah.
And Mickey Rourke. Mississippi Burning, which has got Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe.
Very powerful, yeah.
And then there's a couple of other movies like Come See the Paradise, which is a Dennis Quaid film, and being a musician, you love this one, I know for a fact, The Commitments from 1991.
Yeah. So they would be my 3. So going back to The Wall, it's almost what's the word? It's almost folklore, you know, about how hard it was to make that film. Roger Waters had an opinion, and he had Gerald Scarfe who came in who had an opinion, and I think Alan bestrode both mountains, and it took forever. So let's not talk about that. But it is one of my favourite albums.
Yeah.
So to get visuals to something that didn't spoil it or upset it was astonishing, and it didn't look anything like what I thought it would look like, and I think that's probably what everybody said, because Roger Waters is mad, and where he was going on it, you know, and I love you, Roger. Wonderful writer, very influential through all my career.
Yeah.
So very powerful, wacky, wild, and it worked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you said Angel Heart as well.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that either. I've seen The Wall, which I thought was visually it's amazing. I didn't really get the story, but then that's just me.
Probably not supposed to.
Maybe. But Angel Heart here is great. Mississippi Burning, I'd love to see. But we're going to talk about The Commitments quickly. I know this is a Midnight Express one, but your opinion on The Commitments. It's a movie that you introduced me to some time ago, and I watched it, and I thought the music's fantastic, really, really great, and the story's pretty cool too. The characters are funny.
Yeah.
So
It's not the end. It's not earth-shattering story, but it doesn't need to be, does it?
No, and that's obviously he has a lot of realism in his movies, I'd probably say, and stuff. And noticing in his filmography that one of his most successful movies was in 1996 when he made Evita with Madonna, and so it clearly shows that he had a thing for working on music, musical films. So
I didn't know he did Fame or Evita, so there you go. I haven't researched him that well, have I?
No.
But The Commitments was very special. You see, being a musician, or maybe not being a musician, or just being a fan of music, or maybe even if you hate music, the thing I hate most is when you see these music films that are just so stodgy and fake. Everybody clapping along down the front.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
This was
that kind of pulls the carpet under your feet, really, with that movie, The Commitments, with its ending and everything like that.
It
So,
does, yeah. But as you say, that Andrew Strong singing was astonishing. The soundtrack, I mean, you know, a lot of the soundtracks of these music films are naff, you know, especially singing old classic R&B covers that you don't touch. You don't touch Mustang Sally, and they blew it away.
Yeah.
That Irish Dublin sense of humour, astonishing. Bringing the horse in the elevator, in the lift. It was just wonderful.
So was this kind of like a musical Bible to you among and many other musicians around that time?
Yeah, a Bible, but if you wanted somebody to understand a bit about the music business, because they never made it.
Because you could relate more to this maybe than say this is Spinal Tap maybe.
Yes, totally, yeah. And also this is about a band failing, you know, which is important. There's lots of other stories about making it, you know.
Yeah.
This is great. This shows you all the struggles of keeping a band going, the fights, literally the fights, and the disappointments and the lies and the shagging and the drink and all that. And of course, setting it in Ireland was brilliant because it just made it that kind of nutty, lovable Irish.
And you've probably dealt with people like that in your entire career, right?
Still am. Yeah, if you haven't seen The Commitments, folks, go and watch it. Matt's promised to go and watch Angel Heart this week, so
I will try my best to get that
scare
down.
the pants off him.
Yes, yes. So, anything you want to say more about Alan Parker or the Midnight Express?
As I said, I've watched another probably 40 films that are better than it now. But
do you feel it's dated a little bit?
Yes, yeah. Well, dated only in my memories of it, I suppose.
So this would have been equivalent to, like, say, being a young late teens, early 20s when you saw this. So this would have impacted you as a real shock moment. But now, as you said earlier, when you watch the news, it's much more shocking on the news, or what you see going on in the world now.
Totally. But Mississippi Burning, which you did, I've seen, is about racial southern states of America, and that's not anymore, and that shakes you. But again, these older films, their power to shock. It's just a memory, and that's why I chose it. It was a very important memory. Walking out onto Shaftesbury Avenue in the dark, so it would have been probably autumn, in the dark, at 5:30 after being through that, I didn't know what to do. I had to go do a session with Chaz or something. It was something I'll remember forever.
Wow. So at least you've got that memory of that, and the fact that it impacted you a lot. But to be honest, it's a movie I'd never seen before until you sort of told me to check it out. And I've had friends that have always said, "Oh, you've got to see it. It's powerful and stuff like that." And to be honest, it affects you because those memories of those particular key scenes, I think once you've seen it, they'll always be with you. Yeah. And that's probably the way you feel about it, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, there's other things that have affected me as well, but that was when I was a young man growing up, and also just that Turkish holiday we'd had.
Yeah, so you had that linking connection there.
Yeah, and the whole thing was, you got to get out of the prison and then over into Greece. Well, when we were on that holiday, Turkey had just invaded Cyprus, and so the border between Greece and Turkey was shut.
Wow.
We just sat in Greece for about a week waiting until we got through. And I remember friends taking pictures, just of anything. And literally, I swear on my life, people coming along with machine guns going, no pictures. So I have a sense of that tension. Yeah. I also wanted to say, Matt, if I may say, there's the DVD there. I'll sign that. And if you want to give it away to any of your people, you can think up some quiz or something.
Yeah, absolutely. We will come up with some sort of quiz there. But that's interesting that you bring up quiz because...
Oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, I want to ask you, as we aren't doing Twister Spinner in the celebrity editions, and hopefully this will be the first of many celebrity editions, if Nick can help me pull some strings there.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically,
I've got an idea. Parker along. He's not doing anything these days.
No. So the idea is I'd like to do a quiz, if we can, of 10 questions.
Woo!
5 questions which will link to your music and your career, which are movie related still. 5 questions which relate to a particular genre of movie that you like, which you have elected. And then following that, we got a special treat of another question which will come up, if you don't mind. So this feels a bit like probably when you were doing your, was it A-levels or O-levels back in the school days?
Probably A-levels, know your questions. Yeah. Go on then. Go on, bring it on, man.
Okay.
And by the way, I've got a really trusty coffee moment, so this is ginger wine. I'm not knocking back Lafroy whiskey here, although I wish, but no.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. As you see, I'm doing this via my laptop. So we have the first question.
Do you have the answers as well there?
Well, no, that's for me to see. You can't see that. Okay. You spoil that for the audience now.
No, I didn't. I can't even see. I'm that short-sighted. I can't even see what.
No, he's wearing sunglasses too, so clearly it's going to be.
That's because of the
honest. Okay, right. So ready now. So one of the movies that I did cover on What Did You Think with Andrew is a movie called Whitewater Summer, which came out in 1987. Now, it features your song Life in a Dangerous Time, which I bigged up big time in the video. My question is, can you name any of the actors in that movie? Any?
I can.
And there's only about 6 actors.
Yes, there is. What a weird film, eh?
Yeah.
And I was so proud when we got that. I mean, it just came out of the blue. Nobody's ever used that song before. And
it works so well. And considering I told you in the past, that movie, most of that scenes was shot in 1985, but your song didn't get even produced until 86, 87.
Yes.
So merging a song that's brand new with footage that's 2 years old is pretty genius by the filmmaker.
Somebody spotted it, yeah. And also, you often get a clip of about 20 seconds. So I think they played nearly the whole song.
Yeah, so it's kind of like one of those 80s montages.
Yeah, just said, come on then. Well, obviously, Kevin Bacon. And that's all I can
That's
say.
all you
and,
know.
And a bunch of kids.
Okay, well, I mentioned some of
Who's
the
the
others. There's no ladies in it. It's all boys. So you have Sean Astin, who had just done the Goonies around that time, as well as Kevin Bacon, and a few other actors, Jonathan Ward, Matt Adler, and Casey Martell. So well done for that. You got a good point there.
Well, he's a big star, isn't he?
So number 2 this is an important one, which is your song "I Just Died in Your Arms." Huge hit. Has been used in 7 movies.
Woo-hoo.
Now, can you name any, or even better, all of them?
All of them, no way.
Can you think of any off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's, over the years you get asked and you say yes, and then people remind you. So I can think most recently, and the one I'm most proud of is Batman Lego.
Fantastic, yeah, the Lego Batman movie, yep.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, that's one as well.
Never Been Kissed.
Yeah.
3.
I think Never Been Kissed was the first movie that your song was used
Was
on,
it?
of I Just Died in Your Arms, yeah.
And you're going to impress me now with the other 7. Good lord.
There's 7 in total. So basically you've got Never Been Kissed, Late Night Shopping, which is a British film I watched, and it's used...
I've just thought of another. Stitches.
Stitches,
Which was a weird one with the
Ross Noble.
Ross Noble plays a clown.
Yeah,
sorry, I
right.
interrupted you.
No, that's fine. The Late Night Shopping is used in this scene where the characters are driving the car along the pier, and it's all these rock anthems like China in Your Hands and All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You and I Just Died in Your Arms. But as well, you've got Hot Rod, which is featuring one of the Lonely Island boys, Andy Samberg, in it, and a film called Summerhood, which I've never heard of.
Summerhood.
Yeah. You ever heard of that?
Nope.
Never
I
heard
bought
of that?
all the DVDs.
Hot Tub Time Machine, as you said, Stitches, and of course the Lego Batman movie. Before I get to the next question,
So I didn't do too badly, did I?
have you been asked for any more movies for that song at this moment in time as we film?
There's a very, very good chance that it'll be in. Am I allowed to say this? I suppose. Yeah, I can say this one. There's 2. There's real. I won't say the one that's really hot. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave you dangling there.
Yeah.
But the next Batman, I think there's going to be a Batman Lego 2.
Yes.
And in that, there's a scene where Bruce thinks again of his love, and it will be the the backtrack of Die in Your Arms, not the vocals.
That's the same that they did in Never Been Kissed, which is they used I Just Died in Your Arms as that moment when the character spots the girl of his dreams.
Yes.
That's what they've used that in both that and Lego Batman. Yeah.
Oh, so
and how does it feel when you see that?
Batman especially was so cool. It's always lovely.
And your favourite movie that has been used in Lego Batman, or Stitches, or anything like that?
Stitches is bizarre. I mean, that is a clown who was made fun of by kids, and so at a party, it's Ross Noble, this wonderful British comedian. He gets the bully, doesn't he, and just takes the top of his head off. And
I've not seen the movie, but I've seen that scene.
I'm not sure. I think he's scalping him, and this kid's sitting there. And all the kids are in the next room singing along to my song. So yeah, I guess I'm rather proud of that, really.
Excellent. So the next question I've got for you is, we talked about the commitments. Now, can you name any of the songs that are in the movie? There's 14 of them. I'm not expecting you to guess all 14, but can you name any of the songs that stood out to you? Or
Well, Mustang Sally, which isn't my favourite song, but I remember that.
To me, that's the most memorable one.
Because that voice.
Yeah.
Take Me to the River?
That's one as well.
Do Right. Is that on there? Do Right by
Do Right Women, Do Right Man?
Yeah,
That's one as well, yeah.
And then there was the Try a Little Tenderness.
Yeah, obviously the most memorable song at the end of the film, yeah.
And there was one other fantastic one. Just. Have you got the answers down there?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Clue. Give me one more clue.
Wilson Pickett.
Yeah,
because that's part of the clue in the movie, is that he's around that time when they're doing their gig, and that Wilson's going to come and see the commitments.
Don't know.
In the Midnight Hour.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah, so basically you've got Mustang Sally, Take Me to the River, Chain of Fools.
That's the one I was thinking. Chain of Fools. Because there's 3 backing singers.
Yeah.
One drop
because they all take turns. Don't
Imelda Quirk. Imelda Quirk. She's the hot one.
Yeah.
Then there's the one that's sort of middling and it's a big star in Ireland now, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there's a little chubby one who is, I think, I may have made this up. Whether she's alive still or not?
I'm not sure.
I looked that one up. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're still alive, darling, I apologise. And good luck. Live long.
So you got Dark End of the Street, Destination Anywhere, I Can't Stand the Rain, Try a Little Tenderness, Treat Her Right, Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, Mr. Pitfall.
Oh yeah, they call me Mr. Pitiful.
That sounded like Pity the Fool a little bit then. I Never Loved a Man, In the Midnight Hour, Bye Bye Baby, and Slip Away.
Okay, well, I remember 10 of those instantly.
Yeah.
Wonderful soundtrack. You know, folks, just, go and see it and laugh, buy beer and whiskey, bring your best friends around, turn it up loud, and then buy the soundtrack.
Which I think you definitely will. Right, so 2 more questions for your career, which is, I Just Died in Your Arms was released as a single in Europe in 1986. However, can you name the highest grossing USA release in that year in America, the biggest film of that year? And I'll give you one little clue. I will cheat you with one little clue, which is wong 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 wong.
Yeah. So that would be Take Your Breath Away, which was by Berlin, who I play with probably every year of my life. A lovely band. I love Terry's a nice girl.
So it's from Top Gun.
And it's from Top Gun, yeah. I might have got that. I actually might have got that. That would have been a guess, but I might have got it.
Yeah. Well, that movie took, according to the internet grossing, it says $176 million.
Dear God.
Yeah.
And wasn't that written by Moroder?
Yes, a co-write with Moroder and I think one of the members of Berlin. So that's another Midnight Express link.
Exactly. Giorgio pops up again with a good song.
Yes, this time. And then the final question for this is, when I Just Died in Your Arms reached #1 in the USA, it was on the 2nd of May 1987.
I remember it well.
What movie was #1 in the USA that day? This is going to be a hard one.
Ghostbusters.
No.
No idea.
No? Okay. Right. It might not be a movie that you probably remember from the 80s, but it's a movie starring Michael J. Fox called The Secret of My Success. You ever heard that?
I have, and I may have seen it, yeah.
It was #1 for 4 weeks that day. It stayed there for 5 weeks overall, but it was already 4 weeks at that time.
Yeah.
And it then got knocked off by one of the worst movies ever made, according to many critics, Ishtar, starring Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. You ever seen?
Anything Warren?
Yeah, that movie was a box office disaster. Yeah. But
can you remember Secret of My Success, what it was about?
Not really. I just think he was like an office boy that sort of was trying to get up the ladder in the working career, something like that.
Very, very fond of Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Regardless of his dreadful illness, just always.
Yeah.
He was always different. He was not your obvious pin-up, and yet was girls loved him. He was this kind of the
ordinary boy next door.
Totally.
A bit like yourself back in the 80s when you had your hair and everything like that.
When I had my hair.
Still got his hair. So now we're
I didn't do too badly in that, but did I?
No, you did pretty good so far. So we got now 5 questions which are going to come from your chosen movie genre. And what is your favourite movie genre?
Well, spies. The thriller spy thing. I'm always petrified when I used to watch the old Cold War, Russia, communist, this way come over and sharing spies on a bridge in Berlin, very chill. Played Berlin, 20 times in my life, and I always go to Checkpoint Charlie and just stand there and think.
In fact, mention that actually, which is that in 1989 or 1990 when you were playing as cutting crew in Berlin, and this was 4 days after the collapse of the Berlin Wall.
Yes, it was. Yeah. We were on tour in England, in Aberdeen, and Kevin and I sat watching telly. And they said, tonight look at these scenes, and the scenes we'll always remember. The wall falling, people charging through little holes, and guards being hugged. And 4 days later, we were playing in Berlin, and 20 people came to the show. We sold out, 20 people came, and so we played 6 songs and fucked off down the hall. And very, very fortunate, happenstance of timing, but very proud to have been there. And I've still got my piece of wall somewhere.
Yeah, that must have been an incredible experience.
Yeah, and that historically for Europe is one of the, apart from the war that was before it, which was, dreadful and sad and life-changing, but that was a moment in history. And now we're going to go and undo it all by Brexit and start dividing. So, whoops, have I shown,
political correctness.
Have I shown my cards?
Okay, so there's going to be 5 questions now from thriller/spy movies. So I'm going to try and do it as best as I can, which is, in 1998, there was a movie remake of a TV series called The Avengers, and that starred Una Thurman and Sean Connery. Box office disaster.
The Avengers,
yeah. Now, obviously, Patrick McNee were playing John Steed. Now, he had, throughout the entire series, we're going to include the new Avengers as well, he had 4 different female sidekicks. Now, can you name any of the actresses that were the sidekicks?
Obviously, the more recent was Purdy. They used to call it the Purdy haircut, which would be, I'll come back to her in a minute.
Okay.
Oh, the hell's her name? Anyway, come back. Diana Rigg was Emma Peel. That was the famous one, very sexy. Yeah. Very sexy lady, right? So I'm sure still now. Yeah. The original was Miss Moneypenny in James Bond, which was...
Actually, Pussy Galore was...
Pussy
Galore.
Excuse me. And that, her name is... help me with her initials or something.
HB.
Oh, gosh.
She's still acting to this day.
Yeah, well, beautiful woman, isn't she? I can see her face, very elegant, long hair.
We'll give you that. You got the clue. So it's Honor Blackman.
Honor Blackman, thank you.
Yeah.
And then there was the other girl which had short black hair, Linda Thornton, who I have no idea who she is. Okay, no, she was good as well.
And then you got Purdy as well. So.
Right, who is, of course, from Ab Fab, and it is
Joanna Lumley. So at least you knew who they were. You just didn't know the names, but you know who they were. That's good. That counts.
Joanna Lumley, a national treasure.
So were you a big fan of that series?
Yeah, totally. Peel and Steed were my two. They were invincible. Because as a kid, what the hell was going on? It was quite psychedelic. It's quite trippy. I wouldn't even know what that meant then. But you used to watch these things and go, oh my God, there's a man that kills people with ping pong balls or something. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, you kill people with ping pong balls. Wonderful show. So you've got now another question for another TV series from the 1960s linking here, and this is the 2015 movie The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer played roles that were originally portrayed in the 60s series by Robert Vaughn and David McCallum. Yes.
Can you name those character names?
I can. Let's see if I can get it right. Napoleon Solo was Robert Vaughn.
That's correct.
And McCallum played Ilya Kuryakin.
Yes, that's correct. So you get that, definitely. You aced that question.
Totally. They were more popular than the Avengers for me. And my brother Gary and I were allowed to stay up late on Thursday nights to watch it. And then it was, get to bed now. You've seen Man from U.N.C.L.E., get to bed. So yeah, Ilya. Is it funny? I've never said Ilya Kuryakin in 30 years.
Wow. So that's good memories, yeah?
Thank you.
Excellent. So now the next question is...
Alexander Waverley. He was the man as well.
Oh, okay.
The old man. Sorry to interrupt.
It's a bit over my head. I remember watching Man from U.N.C.L.E. when it was on reruns in the 1990s, but I can't really remember much about the series apart from being big fans of McCallum and Vaughn. I thought they were always great actors anyway. But the next question I've got for you is about an author, which is, what is the name of the author who wrote these books that were then turned into movies? So if you know the answer, you can interrupt straight away if you like. But some of those movies that he made include The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, The Russia House, The Tailor of Panama, The Constant Gardener, and more recently Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Constant Gardener was him, was it? Or Jean Le Carré?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you aced that one there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known if you hadn't mentioned Tinker Tailor and Russia House. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, gosh, the recent Tinker Tailor with what was his
Tom
name?
Hardy and Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, remarkable. We're getting these the threads and confusion. You've really got to concentrate on these films.
I think a lot of the actors in that movie have become big stars. Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, is in that too.
Good launch one.
Yeah.
So I got that one then.
Yes. Oi. He's acing this now. So now question 9 is: are you a fan of the Bourne movies?
Yeah, I wouldn't avoid them.
Okay, so in the Bourne series of movies, there are 5 movies. Can you name any of the titles of them?
Bourne Ultimatum.
That's number 3.
Is it? The Bourne...
Number 2, sorry, number 2.
Bourne Identity.
Number 1.
Born Free.
That sounds a great title. Well, we can call it Born Free. Born Supremacy, yeah. Born Free. You want to do 4 and 5 too, do you?
Just tell me, I won't know.
But the others is the Bourne Legacy, which is the only one that doesn't have Matt Damon in it.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner instead. And the final one, which is most recent, is Jason Bourne.
Is that what it's called?
That's just all it's called, Jason Bourne.
I mean, it doesn't begin with Bourne?
No.
Not Bourne Jason?
No, just Jason Bourne.
Born Free.
So that, I think that should have been the
Born
title.
Free. That's a film, you know that, don't you?
Yes, that is a film, yes. And finally, to wrap up this question, really? Really? Oh, you like that film?
It was a very beautiful film about lions on a farm in South Africa, and the lady who it was based on, who raised these lion cubs and everything, was murdered by local Africans like 20 years after the film happened. It was like horrible thing.
It's a shame. Yeah. But we're finally wrapping up this quiz here, which is we're going to go on to the final question, which is Ben Affleck famously directed the movie Argo, which was released in 2013 and won many Oscars for Best Film, and etc., etc. But he starred alongside an actor from the TV series Breaking Bad. Now, can you name that actor?
Well, I didn't know he was in Argo, was he?
He was in Argo. His
Wow.
character's not really that memorable because he's a guy that works in the office in America.
Okay.
So Affleck's interacting with him.
Right. Look, there's only one name I'd know, because Jesse, even I wouldn't know his name, so I'm going to go with Bryan Cranston.
Correct, correct. So you aced that one there big time. So that's part of our quiz done. And now to end it completely, which is I have a list, which is we can do that at some point if you like. But the question I have is I've compiled a list of the top 10 movies of all time according to IMDb.
Okay.
Now, do you go on IMDb?
I use it a lot now. Yeah.
Cool. And basically, I've compiled a list of the 10 movies that are considered the greatest movies. And given the fact that this is all done by user ratings, so then it drops and changes all the time, I've just made a definitive top 10 list as of 2019.
Yeah.
So this is how it is. So basically, this question is we're going to go from movie 1 to movie 10.
Yes.
Which movies have you seen from this list?
And what I thought of them, or just what have I seen them?
You can say what
If
you
I've
think
got any
if you like.
comments.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Right.
Okay, so number 1.
This should be interesting, because I don't often, like with records, if you look at my CD collection, you won't find Thriller in there. You won't find Saturday Night. I don't buy the famous ones.
No.
So this could be interesting.
That's cool. So we're going to start with number 1, which is The Shawshank Redemption from 1994.
5 times I've seen it. Beautiful, just something about it. The real purists go, a bit schmaltzy, but it's beautiful. Everything about redemption and revenge and beautifully acted. Yes, that's number 1, is it?
That's number 1, and it's constantly changing between number 2 here. But I'm actually counting number 2 as a joint entry.
And guess what number 2 is?
Okay.
Godfather.
Correct.
Is it?
It's
the first one.
Godfather 1 and Godfather 2.
Okay.
So I'm going to join them both as one.
That.
So have you seen either of those or both?
Both. Not for a long time. I remember being very impressed. To be honest, it spun me off into watching into those
Classic gangster movies.
Yes, and
things like Goodfellas.
Thank you. Which I enjoy Goodfellas more, actually. But
me too. I think Goodfellas is a better movie.
They're quite epics, these Godfathers.
Yeah.
And I was a young man then. I had things to do.
Yes.
Places to be.
People to see, etc., etc. And so the next one is, I think this is the only superhero movie in this list, which is The Dark Knight, which is the second in the Batman Dark Knight trilogy.
Is that Bale?
Christian Bale, yeah. Yeah.
I found it annoying, his voice. I couldn't hear what he was saying half the time.
A lot of people say that about his performance.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was brilliant and all that, but just why the director let them get, you want to hear what he's saying, but...
The movie's fantastic.
Is it? Yeah.
It's really good, but yeah, he's not my favourite Batman.
I've seen it.
Excellent. Number 4 is Pulp Fiction, which is one of my all-time favourites. We have covered on Matt's Movies, Music and More.
Yeah. I've seen that on your show. It's remarkable, never seen anything like it, never will again. Tarantino breaking all the rules.
Next one, this one is kind of in the vein of Midnight Express, I guess, given that it's a true story. Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List.
I've never seen it.
Have you not?
I've not avoided it. Shame on me.
It's a very, very haunting movie. The images will stay with you just like Midnight Express.
Yeah. No, I'll put that on my list to watch.
All right. This one I'm only counting the last part as that's the highest ranked in this top 10, which is The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Nope.
No, see, I've never seen Lord of the Rings either.
I haven't seen any of Lord of the Rings.
No.
Not avoided it.
No.
Isn't it weird? Just because it's so big.
It's the runtime. I think is obviously a bit too long. They're
There's
nearly
things to
3
do.
hours plus. Yeah,
You've got
exactly.
things to do.
Exactly. Then we go on to a 60s cinematic classic by Sergio Leone, The Good, Bad and the Ugly, from the Man with No Name trilogy.
Yeah. Of course I have. Not for a long time.
That's one I've never seen.
No. Again, it'd be a bit like Midnight Express in a way. Not at all like Midnight Express, but in that kind of, it blew me away, whether it would now, you know, because of what we can see out there. But it was so, the music and the... And you know, very sparse. Now that, if he didn't get a Oscar for that, we must look that up. I hope he did.
Enrico Morricone?
Yeah, I hope
I think he probably would have.
That's a soundtrack.
Yeah, that's
Giorgio.
Yeah. Then we got a movie which I love, 12 Angry Men from 1957.
Gosh, Henry Fonda, yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah. Black and white?
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes.
A classic. I've seen it, yes.
And it's one of those ones that's kind of confined, isn't it? In like a bit like you said with Midnight Express, it's claustrophobic. It's all basically in like one room, so it could easily be a bit like a stage play. Would you say?
Yeah, I wonder if it was.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I tell you what, in my whole of my 60 years, one of the most interesting, intriguing, and proud moments of my life was jury duty.
Wow.
We had a rape trial. And it was brutal and it was nasty and it was all those things, and it was a privilege, and I enjoyed it. You know, a lot of people go like, bloody hell, I had to do jury duty. It was 3 weeks, and so yeah, that's just a little side story.
Excellent. And then we've got 2 more to go. So number 9 is Fight Club.
Yeah, I read that guy's books.
Chuck something.
Yeah, he's Senkowitz or something.
Yes.
And
Chuck son of a bitch, did you say?
So he's, I read his books, I like his books. Yeah, yeah, I've seen it.
It's a hard one to explain, that movie, so I won't touch that with a barge pole.
I didn't hate it, but just didn't touch me. You know, that kind of macho thing.
Yeah. And then finally, to wrap it up, everyone's sci-fi geeks out there who's going to say it, is Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. So, were you ever into the whole Star Wars, Star Trek universe kind of thing?
No.
No?
Only because I avoided, or I missed it. How can you say that? But I never went there. A bit like Lord of the Rings back then, you know. And I bet if I watched it, I'd love it. Yeah. But even if it came on tonight, we were sitting there with a pint of beer, I'd go, oh, let me turn it over. No, it's just very odd, isn't it? I've chosen not to go there. How about you?
I'm not really a huge Star Wars fan, and it's something I will mention on the channel at some point, which is that we have the sides of if you like Star Wars or you like Star Trek. I'll be honest, I'm on the side of Star Trek,
yes.
Because I like the original series of William Shatner, and then for me that's what I want to see. I don't care about the other ones, although the new Star Trek movies are pretty good, but yeah, Star Wars is not my favourite thing, but I'm not disrespecting that to anybody. I like the superhero movies more.
Yes, I do too, yeah. In fact, I saw Iron Man the other day.
Fantastic.
Dear God, it's astonishing.
Yeah.
And not my old Gareth, my good friend Gareth said, just give it a try, and I was like, I don't want those kind of films.
Yeah.
Blew me away.
Yeah, and then you're going to get hooked into the cinematic universe, so you have to watch movie after movie in the right order, because it's all continuous. A bit like playing notes in the right order, right?
Hopefully, yeah. Well, I'm glad my voice held out, Matt, because I'm not feeling that great today, but that was a lot of fun.
I just want to say thank you very much for agreeing to do this, and I'm so grateful that you've supported me with encouraging me to do this, because I get quite nervous and stuff, and it's probably showing on camera, but you know, to have you involved in this is just amazing, so I thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Good luck with Matt's movies.
Excellent. So I'm going to quickly promote Nick here, which is that Cutting Crew currently have an album out at the moment, Add to Favourites, which I would definitely recommend picking up. And we also have as well links, they're going to be in the description here, for the Cutting Crew Facebook page, which is Cutting Crew Music. If you go onto Facebook and just type that in, there's also a Twitter page as well, and all the links will be in my description, as well as all the links for everything else on this channel. Now, I'd just like to say, would you be willing to maybe take part in one of these in the future, if a movie comes up that is of interest to you?
Absolutely. Do you know, I just thought it'd be a really good idea to have a double header with me and Gareth.
That sounds fantastic.
From Cutting Crew, who's a movie head. You know, I like movies. He's like you. He's a movie head, if that's an expression.
Yes.
So he'd be great to have, because we could argue about things.
Excellent. And I think that would definitely help. So yeah, I'm
Gareth, oh God, look there.
Come on, Gareth.
Yeah, you've heard it here first, mate.
Thank you very much again, Nick. And
Okay.
thanks to all of you lot out there watching. So keep in touch and support us on here, and all the very best to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.